So hi, welcome back to Afternoon Literature for another book report. Now, book report is the series I do where I talk about books in preferably 10 minutes or less, and I either review a book in particular, an aspect of a book or series, or I might talk about something bookish and book related, and I only do it for 10 minutes. Today's book report is all going to be about Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, and I'm going to focus today on reviewing it, but looking specifically at the pacing of this novel. Okay, so forgive the rain in the background. We are going to do this, and we are going to do this in under 10 minutes. I am a recent Brandon Sanderson reader, and so far I've only read Warbreaker and Elantris. But I have heard so many things about Brandon Sanderson over the many years of my reading, and as I became more invested in reading fantasy novels. Brandon Sanderson's been getting a lot of attention on BookTube this year. There's been quite a few read-alongs, for example, to do with Brandon Sanderson, and so I think that's important. What I have heard from these read-alongs from people who've read them before is that of all the books to read by Sanderson, Elantris is the worst. So what did I think when I was actually reading Elantris? Well, I think the first thing that I need to say is that as far as I'm aware, Elantris was Sanderson's first published novel. So you would kind of expect this to be the worst. I'm not blaming anyone, but it's kind of the expectation. Shouldn't someone get better as they develop more skill? That kind of makes sense. Also, having listened to some other people and have conversations with them reading this, what is important to say is that while some readers may say that this is Sanderson's worst novel, they are talking about Sanderson's worst novel, not bad novels in general. So what they're saying is he's a good writer, a very good writer, but Elantris is one of his personal worsts. So is that what I found? Well, I can't say from his whole catalogue. I have read 2, and that is not fair to make a judgment on. But what I can say is I can see where the fault would be with this book. The pacing is what I need to focus on. Up until this part, this was a 4-star, almost a 5-star book. Sanderson's writing is very simplistic, but the worlds are incredibly rich. They are filled with wonderful magical systems that form logic, and we are told the rules. In fact, what he's extremely good at, even in his first novel, is telling you how the magic system works in a way that makes sense but isn't condescending. It isn't info dumpy. You kind of find out along with the character, which is a great thing to do and a really great way to hear about it. But they are intricate worlds. There's clearly a lot of plot there, and these are political monsters. I mean, Warbreaker literally involved putting off giant wars, stopping different gods, or what were seen as gods, from fighting each other. In this one, in Elantris, it's about huge political powers, entire countries and continents trying to fight against each other. They are forming massive political alliances, and we're looking at how people convert people. We're looking at colonialism. We're looking at religious conversions and how that works. How do political conversions work, and what's the difference between someone taking over in a military fashion versus taking over in a covert fashion? These are really in-depth and difficult books, and you need time to deal with those topics. So, Elantris follows 3 main characters. We learn about Prince Raiden, who at the very beginning of the novel is put in a completely different position, where he is going to essentially become the leader of a new community. We then learn about Serene, who is a princess coming from Tau, which is a different place, coming to marry Raiden, and she's dealing with the political fallout of the fact that Raiden's no longer there, and the fact that they have a corrupt king and a system that is just not working, that is actually going to lead them towards slavery and oppression. And then you've got Hafren, who is coming from the Fjordgel kingdom, and he is going to try and covertly take over this entire system using religious conversion. He is going to try and colonize Arlene, yes. And it's insane. Besides the mythology that's in this, besides the level of politics that's in this, just those 3 characters alone and seeing their journeys is incredible. And I loved it. I really loved reading about them. Chapter 1 always follows Raiden, then Chapter 2 Serene, then Hafren, then you go back to Raiden. And you could read these as 3 separate parts, but you see them interwoven and how each little thread of what they're doing applies against one another. It's incredibly well written, incredibly well plotted, and at the beginning, quite well paced. There's times where there's definite downtime, but you kind of get to know the characters and the world, and the side characters are wonderful too. You learn a lot about them. But so much happens by the time we're here, and then they say, oh, I've only been in the city for 5 days. I'm sorry, you what? Enough has happened that they have been in the city for 3 months, 4 months. No, it's 5 days. And that just seems so off, pacing-wise. I feel I have known these characters for such a long time, and yet the writing's telling me it's only been a week. Then we see this continue throughout. We're constantly reminded of a timeline the Hafren's been given, but it's a timeline that seems incongruous with the amount of events that have happened. Everything seems not quite to add up on that scale of plotting versus pace. We then get to the last part of the novel. I can't say the second half, because up until around page 430, it goes quite slow. I loved the characters, I enjoyed the world, I really enjoyed the political intrigue and learning about it. But so much happened, so much, in the last 120 pages, that it started to really break my enjoyment of the book. What I found was that I was constantly going like, what? What happened? When did that happen? How has that happened? I felt like I had whiplash. 1 or 2 twists I can get. So there's a really cool twist in there that I didn't see coming, and I was like, what? But once that twist happens, everything kind of snowballs from there. And it goes so fast, but in a way that doesn't make sense. Some of these are major shifts and major changes, and we just don't get the opportunity to really enjoy and experience them as much as we did at the beginning of the novel. By having the beginning of the novel so slow-paced and so character-driven, so intricate, it actually did a disservice to the second part of the novel, because it felt like he got to page 400 and realised, oh no, I've got this much left of my plot to do and I'm going to have to jam this in somehow. And so everything feels almost like bullet points, rather than it actually feeling like really developed events that you can understand and sympathise with and see coming. I get it. The last part of the book, particularly the last 60, 70 pages, is kind of like an epic fight for your life, fight for your kingdom time. And so that would be fast. Those events would take place over only a couple of days. But there's a 5 or 6 day period that is kind of just skipped in a couple of paragraphs. There's a relationship that's developed in a way where previously we'd seen 200 pages developing a relationship. Now we're seeing 5. And it just doesn't seem to balance or make sense. That being said, I enjoyed this book. Elantris is definitely a good fantasy novel, and I really love the world. The idea of Elantris and the Elantrans, the idea of the Andor and the magic were brilliant, and I liked the characters. I loved seeing the different religious aspects to this and seeing the world fleshed out, but I just felt that this was actually a much bigger novel than a standalone. And I think what suffers here is the fact that because Sanderson wrote it, either because he had to write it as a standalone for it to be published, or because of the decision of him being quite a new author at this point and deciding to do that, it suffers. It just lacks, unfortunately, in that balance in pacing. So overall, I would give this book probably a low 4.3 star or something like that. And although I intend to read a lot more of Sanderson, so I can't make an actual judgment yet on whether this is personally his worst, what I can definitely say is I can see why people would say this isn't as quite as the others, as good as the others. Okay, well that's everything from me today on this book report. If you like this, please throw this video a like so I know to post more of them. And if you want to see more book reports, subscribe because I put one of these out every Friday. I hope you enjoy your reading this week. Have a good week.